Good evening and welcome to the December meeting of the Granville Exempted Village Board of Education. Thank you for being here. Would you please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for braving the cold tonight and for joining us in the formal. Would you please take the roll?
Mr. James?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Gorman?
Here.
Ms. Deans?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Here. Commendations. All right.
All right, so tonight our first commendation is hopefully something that doesn't get me emotional, but it might, so I'm going to warn you up front. So we have, as parents, one precious commodity, okay, and that's our kids. And sometimes we take for granted getting them to and from school safely. And we take a lot of pride in our transportation department making decisions in the best interest of kids on a day-to-day basis. Whether that's a phone call home to say, hey, you're not home, I'm about to drop off your kid, to an anxious parent who's stuck in traffic, to making a snow day decision with me, Kim, at 4:35, 5:15 in the morning. But tonight we'd like to recognize one bus driver. So last Thursday, he was involved in an accident from which neither he nor the other driver or any of the students sustained an injury. But because of his alertness and excellent driving skills, all of our students remained safe and arrived home from school. Many days we take for granted the quality of our bus drivers, but today Dale represents all of his colleagues. He's been a bus driver for Granville Schools since August of 2014. Dale Simpson, would you please come up and receive a commendation from the board? Quick thinking, skill, if it's a little bit of luck, Dale, it doesn't matter. You'd be surprised at how many phone calls I got that evening from people saying, I want to know Dale's information so I can send him a letter thanking him for getting my kid home safe. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay.
My pleasure.
All right. Next, I'm not going to get emotional. No. In today's world, it's rare to find people who are willing to take on a cause, get educated about an issue, and then communicate that information to their own community, even if it is for a noble cause. Especially when it means that those community members are going to have to pay more, which is pretty unpopular these days. But tonight we'd like to recognize the 19 members of the November 6th Levy Campaign Committee for their dedication and tireless hours they devoted toward communicating factual information to the community during the last election. So I'd like to invite up here Joe Lighthouser, Matt Miller, Dan Katona, Mike Schmidt, Dawn Eggleston, Cecile Shaw, Alyssa Smith, Mike Yearling, Beth Havel, Jay Snyder, Kevin and Melanie Colheim, Amy Sanders, Scott and Renee Mortimer, Denny Ehrman, Lisa Miller, Seth Patton, and Mike Bay. And I got you all. It is like graduation.
The band is or something. Oh, the band is at City Barbecue, that's right.
All right, so I'm going to kind of go down the list real quick, briefly, just to talk about some of the skill sets that they brought. I'm going to start at the end and work our way this way. Mike Bate is the president of the Education Association and was there as a teaching representative on the committee to lend perspective from the classroom. Seth Patton, everybody knows Seth. He was the CFO of Denison for many years, lended his talents to the committee as the treasurer. So he accepted a lot of donations and wrote a lot of checks to pay for the items that the committee supported. Jay Snyder, marketing genius, also has a day job in Steamroller, or at Steamroller, and appreciate his efforts. Also has a wife that teaches in the school district. Mike Yearling, he's probably, you know, the wizard, because he made people like myself and Russ, no offense, but you know, look good in video. That's hard to do. So, Mike, we appreciate your flexibility and willingness to support us.
You just claim that you look good.
Oh, no, I didn't. Trust me. Alyssa Smith. Alyssa was also part of the marketing committee, and her husband is Jared, who is is the band director. And the marketing committee as a whole was a perfect example of a group working collaboratively to bounce ideas off of each other and how to communicate a clear, consistent message. So fantastic work there. Beth Havel needs no introduction. She's been at your yard, probably. So Beth has somewhat of a reputation of being the yard sign queen, and this year we exceeded historical numbers as far as getting yard signs out and visible to the community. Dawn is the other half of Mike, the better half, and she does a lot of the marketing materials as well, really coordinated the last 2 campaigns as far as marketing, and we appreciate all that she added to that conversation. Cecile worked on getting out volunteers and getting people to events and kind of the coordination of events. So did a fantastic job of getting the word out to all of our volunteers. Kevin and Melanie, they were kind of our social media group. So they worked with Rev Local that donated services and worked with the marketing team to really put together the messages and get those out via social media. Mike Schmidt had the hardest job. These levy campaigns require money, and so he has to go out and solicit donations to try and get revenue for the committee to operate. He did a fantastic job, did it for the last 2 campaigns. Matt Miller, he was our co-chair and with Joe Lighthouser, and really was kind of the rudder in steering the ship and getting to a successful conclusion of our election. So Matt is asked to do a lot in this community, and we're very happy that he was a part of this process.
But I don't want to do it again.
Yes, yes. And then Denny Erman. Denny Erman has, you know, I talked with Francis, I said, he has a skill set that's unbelievable. Like, he just kept our committee meetings on point and had great notes that everybody could follow up on and execute. So, fantastic job getting everybody the information that they need. Your son's giving you the yay sign.
That's one of our campuses right there.
There you go, exactly. So, all of you, we would not have been successful in getting this message out to the community, really setting the stage for financial stability in Granville schools for hopefully a very long time. And I can't thank you enough, and the community owes you a debt of gratitude as well. So on behalf of the board, thank you very much for everything that you do. And this is the shortest meeting. So you can stay, but this is usually the point in the time in the meeting where I allow you to exit gracefully. So, thank you. Thank you.
Are you serious?
Heavy bit. Actually,
they are.
You guys can sit in chairs now.
My dad wanted to.
Don't get me wrong, if I have this,
My dad wanted to go from 0 to 6.
I know.
It's a nice book. It's weird though. I'm gonna choose it. Because I just have to.
I'd go back to
But that's a luxury.
Thanks. All right. Staff reports.
Okay, this is our annual event to bring the principals together to present the building continuous improvement plans. One of the things that I think is unique about the culture of Granville schools is that notion of a continuous improvement mentality. And that doesn't happen by accident, that's very intentional. Something that the administrative team prioritizes and focuses on. And when you focus on things, things get done. So it's a way to prioritize what matters most. So what I'd like to do is invite our administration up to give an update on their building continuous improvement plans. And it looks like we're starting with Travis at the elementary.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks again for having us. And on behalf of all the principals, I want to just say thank you for your leadership this year. It was an up and down year, of course, but your resiliency and stick-to-itiveness really has really helped us out this year. So again, we appreciate your leadership. Mr. Brown, appreciate your vision in getting us to this point, and Mr. Sobel as well for all your hard work over the last several years as well. So I'm here to start us off talking about our continuous improvement plan. As Mr. Brown said, Jim Collins talks about the good being the new great, and I think that I can say without hesitation, all of the administrators here, I believe that as well. We never want to be just good enough. We want to keep getting better and better and better. So that's the purpose of sharing this information with you, is so you know that we're working towards those goals and always looking to improve. So starting off with the elementary school, some of the strengths you can see up here. I really want to just highlight in terms of achievement. We only have one major state assessment at the elementary level. That's the third grade state assessment. So again, this past school year, as with all the other years, all of our students have met the provision of the third grade guarantee. So for the length of its existence, the third grade guarantee, we've always had our students meet those provisions one way or another. And I also want to point out just the very first bullet, students feeling cared for at the elementary school. More than anything at the elementary level, it is so important that kids love to learn. And that's one of the major goals, and I say that a lot with my staff and with our parents, and our survey results every year indicate that. And we're really seeing a lot more encouragement to be leaders. I attribute that to our PACS program that we use in elementary school, really encouraging students to be good characters and good leaders in what they do. We do have some areas that we're continuing to work towards at the elementary school. Balanced literacy framework, although we've made great strides over the last several years, will always be an area where we're wanting to improve. Kids they're developing and changing differently, their needs are different every year, and so we always have to respond and be proactive in meeting the needs of our kids. But what's nice is that this year we can start making a little bit of a shift towards a focus towards math instruction. It's not that math has been ignored over the last few years. We can be much more intentional about building the same type of framework that we have with literacy, developing that with math, so it's very cohesive across the building. We also want to spend this year really looking at the well-being of our students. As we've seen over the years, younger and younger kids are experiencing much more anxiety and stress, so it's even hitting us at the elementary school. So again, we want to be proactive in how we're meeting our kids' needs. One of the ways we are doing that is through the use of Calm Classroom. Most of the teachers at the elementary school are piloting that this year, and just taking 1 or 2 minutes, 2 or 3 times a day, just to provide some reflection time and just some calming time for students. And every teacher who's doing it has just found some great success with just allowing their kids just to relax once or twice during the day. We also have a committee that is really geared towards looking at how can we best meet the well-being needs of our kids. I would say it's kind of a microcosm of the well-being task force that's happening at the district level. So we're focusing more intentionally on the elementary school with the students. And we have some great ideas. It's not a one-and-done type committee. This is a long-term committee with trying to set some very long-term goals. But although they may be ambitious, I'm very excited to see what happens out of the committee. So in terms of our building initiatives, you will see that continuing that practice in math, really working on mathematical mindsets for elementary students. Building that framework is a big part of that. Continuing to work with balanced literacy in terms of instructional practices. And then again, really helping our students through developing strategies to help them with their social emotional needs. Calm classroom, use of PACs. We also use other tools such as zones of regulation to help with that as well. Any questions for the elementary school?
Travis, you didn't mention it, but I hear frequently from parents who talk about some of the PBL projects that their kids are engaging in. I know it from kindergarten all the way through third grade, there are different projects going on. But I had one parent share with a colleague of mine that their child was looking at accessibility and inclusivity of the playground for kids in the MH unit. And she said, I know we've never talked about that concept at home, so it has to be coming from school. And isn't it great when a first grader can talk intelligently about inclusivity and accessibility? So,
yeah, I'm extremely excited to see as we are continuing to do PBL. With anything new that comes to a building, there's a little bit of hesitancy. What is this? Is this going to be just the new fad is going to move out? But really, we're seeing some solid footing with PBL at the elementary school and some great success. In fact, I was walking around classrooms today and I saw 2 or 3 different projects in different grade levels. We have a kindergarten class that's creating a quilt all about their traditions and their lifestyles and their heritage, and they're going to present that to their families. And it's going to be a beautiful kindergarten style quilt. And then we do have some other playground type PBLs going on. We have Mr. Drake is working with 3rd grade classrooms, and the 3rd graders are going to be teaching 1st graders about sportsmanship and leadership on the playground and sports activities and things like that. So I saw a little bit of that today. So it's amazing to see, if we just hold our expectations high for our kids, right, just as a 1st grader really looking at to meet the needs of all the other kids in both as well.
thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass it on to Mr.
Thank you.
Nurse.
All right.
Good evening. These are the building strengths for the intermediate school. The first 4 are basically all from our state report card. We have worked really hard over the past, I would say, 3 to 5 years to really make some big improvements at the intermediate school. So we're happy and pleased to see that we did receive an A designation in all areas. Also met our gifted indicator as well as our gap closing indicator. The other strengths we have on here come from our 6th grade exit survey, because we're trying to also focus on the whole child and not just academics, to show that we're more than just academics at the intermediate school. So one of the areas that we really have tried to improve upon is the piece in the exit survey that talks about students feeling that we care about them as individuals, and we're just not there to instruct them, but we want to get to know them and some of their personal interests as well. So this is a big one for us. We did institute a MIC program. I've talked about that in the past, and we really do attribute that MIC program for the big push in this area, because we're around 88, 89% in the past in this particular indicator, so we really were happy to see that MIC program really had an impact to bring that number up. The others were around making sure we're challenging our students and making sure that we are stretching them, them becoming active learners and participants in their learning, and then feeling physical safe. Because those are the 4 areas that we feel are really important to really know and gain about our students. The last 3 are areas that we really haven't ever talked about at the intermediate school, but they're becoming very prevalent at the intermediate school. That's our Fuel Up to Play 60 program, Last year, we actually had 5 of our students, they have to apply to be a student ambassador. It's a pretty lengthy application, they have to write an essay for that, and then submit it to the Fuel Up to 360 Foundation. And we actually had 5 of our intermediate school students attend the National Summit and become student ambassadors for that. So that's a very huge honor. Because even though you apply, you don't necessarily get chosen to be a student ambassador. So we're really proud of those 5 students. Also, our archery club continues year after year to qualify at the state and national level, which then sends them on to the world tournament. Last year, it was in Tennessee. So another area that we're really proud of. And then the other piece that's really coming along that kind of goes with Fuel Up to 360 is our 100-mile club. Both of these programs, Fuel Up and 100-mile, all deal with healthy choices, exercise, getting out, being out from behind that video game and our texting and all the electronics. So this number is really increasing too, that we're almost over half of our students that are participating in the 100-mile club. This is also something they have to log online because they have to log their activities and they have to log in so many hours to be a participant for 100-mile club. So those are just some of the strengths, kind of to showcase whole child versus just academics at the intermediate school. So these are improvement areas. We want to continue to implement at least one project-based learning throughout the school year. I have many teachers that are doing more than one. Some that are still just comfortable wanting to perfect and refine the one that they put into place last year. We're, along with the elementary, because it's a K-6 literacy program, we are continuing our learning around literacy, really starting to refine things through our Lucy Calkins units of study. You guys are going to get a presentation about that program in January because we have our 2 literacy coaches that are going to come and do a presentation for you to kind of give you some information about that program so you're a little bit more well-versed in that area. We're also with our math teachers because we are departmentalized in the intermediate schools. We're really starting to wanting to continue with the implementation of guided math workshop and really looking at the instructional methodology that goes along with that and the resources and the strategies that students are using so that students continue to grow in the area of math. And then just about every grade level and every single content area, math, language, arts, science, social studies, we have inclusion going on. So we're really trying to refine those co-teaching models that we started last year with inclusion. And I can say very confidently standing up here that if you walked into any of the inclusion classes at the intermediate school, you'd be hard pressed to decide which person was the intervention specialist and which person is a regular teacher because the amount of PD we've done around co-teaching and the models that we're implementing for that. So we're really proud of that as well. But something we want to continue to refine and make sure we're using a variety of those models and not just 1 or 2 of them. And then we're still focusing around our character ed program. We feel we have a really good environment going on, so we're changing things up a little bit. We started a student pledge that we say every single morning. We follow the Pledge of Allegiance by a Greenville Intermediate School pledge. And the whole purpose behind that pledge is we really want our students to really start taking ownership of their learning and really understand why they're learning it and taking ownership to push themselves and make those goals to improve. So those are our 4 improvement areas. So those first 3 bullets under our initiatives just kind of re-emphasizes those improvement areas. And then each grade level has picked an initiative as well that they're using to help define some of those building-wide initiatives. So 4th grade is really starting to analyze their student growth by utilizing pre- and post-common quarterly assessments. So in math and reading, the teachers have created for every single quarter a common assessment. They give it as a pre-assessment. They look at their instruction and differentiate their instruction based on that pre-assessment. Then they give the exact same assessment as a post-assessment so they can track growth across their students. 5th grade is looking at resources to refine the guided math workshop because they feel like they really need to refine some of the resources they're using and really choose the ones that are really supporting standards and really helping to differentiate their instruction. And then, of course, the reading teachers are doing the same as the fourth grade, and they're using pre- and post-common assessments and the units of study program to be able to set goals with students and track their growth. And then sixth grade is changing their PBL project. They did the Genius Hour project last year. This year they're going to do a visionary marketplace where students are going to come up with a problem. It's kind of similar to what you see as the seniors do for their projects that they do at the end of their senior year. And they're going to come up with a problem, they're going to be put into groups, and they're going to come up with a prototype to solve that problem. And that will start second semester, and it will be kind of a takeoff from Genius Hour last year with just kind of a little bit of a twist to it. So those are the three areas for grade levels that we're going to do for building initiatives as well. Questions for the intermediate school?
What about the library? How's it gone this year? I know we had to make some changes there that were really unfortunate and been able to find volunteers or staff.
The library is up and running and going very well. We do miss not having a school librarian, but we did get creative. And each language arts teacher on Tuesday, every fourth grade class takes time out of their language arts block and takes their students in to check out books. On Wednesday, the fifth grade language arts teachers are going in, and on Thursday, the sixth grade language arts teachers are going in. So the Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are pretty busy days in the library because all kids are being cycled through to check out books. Monday and Friday is open library, so if teachers want to take students in to do research, or they have gone through their books and they want to check out other books, they can sign up for a time to go in there. And I have to give a handout to the library about the elementary. She organized, trained all of the volunteers that we have at the intermediate school. Sarah also has come up to the intermediate school and kind of set out books, really made the library look like a very inviting place. So although we miss not having a full-time librarian, we've really gotten creative and made do, and kids are getting in and being able to still use the resource. Okay, Lisa, you're up.
So I think it's still something that I'd like to point out. One question is, we've been doing ACE Day. Some of you have kids in my building before, so we've been doing ACE Day for a while now. And we thought on the exit survey, we didn't have that question. We found that very valuable a couple times a week. So that was a question we added last year, and overwhelmingly 95% of the eighth graders said yes, they really value that time. And I think one of the reasons there were some of the comments was because so many of our kiddos are in ear-long music and a foreign language, which means they don't have any free time in a day. Or we do have a lot of students that are accelerated. So I think a couple of days a week, maybe that 30 minutes of downtime, where we go check in a teacher or whatnot, they find that very valuable. And as well, the staff members too find it very valuable. So we're still looking at ways to tweak that, and maybe we're contemplating if we want to add more days to it next year. We do it twice a week now, so we're having those conversations now. Another positive there, 80% of the eighth graders said they had a positive experience while at the middle school. Again, it's something we want to work on to get higher, but at the middle school level, adolescents, I mean, it's tough. It's a rough age. There's a lot going on with their bodies, and social media kicks in high speed, and there's a lot of drama. I love it. That's why I'm at that level. But so for 80%, I think that's pretty good. We'll keep working on it to get it higher, but with everything we have going on, we're pretty happy with that. This is a new area too. We asked the students about their coping skills. You've heard me before several years in a row now talk about how we've been concerned with the stress level is getting higher and higher and higher. So we decided, okay, well, we know the stress level's high. What are they doing about it? How can we help them? So we got rid of the question about how high is your stress. And instead, we started asking, how are you able to cope with stress? So for the first time out of the gate, 72% said that they felt like they could, and they listed their various ways that they do that, so that was helpful. So that's one thing we're looking at. And previously with the report card, we've been able to make gains closing the gap with math, but language arts has been a little bit more of a struggle, and this past year we did much better, so we were pleased with that grade that we were making that. So, improvement areas. So, 76.9% of staff on the staff survey indicated they had high levels of stress. Likewise, 57% had an overall general feeling of happiness, which is definitely, as the principal and leader of the building, those two really stood out to me as like, wow, I've got to work on a few things. There's a lot going on here. The kids are stressed, the staff is stressed, so I'll talk more about that later here in a minute. Now, I just talked about the 72% of 8th graders with coping skills. I realize it was a strength, but I'm also saying it's an improvement area because that does concern us. We still have 28% of the kiddos who need help identifying what do I do when I start to get ramped up and that anxiety kicks in. What are some of the things I can do? So we're trying to work within that on that this year as well. And then for value added, we didn't quite meet our expectations we were looking for in 7th grade language arts and 8th grade science. So 7th grade language arts, actually next week, Mr. Bernath and I are meeting with them to go over the data and look at results. And 8th grade science, we want to wait until after the first year because I have a teacher who's been on maternity leave and she doesn't return until January. So Mr. Bernath and I will work on that. So what do we want to work on? Obviously PBL is a district initiative that we're still working on. We've had several subject areas already go through it. 7th grade language arts is working on theirs right now. 8th grade language arts has started. 8th grade science is finished. PE is wrapping up right now. So there's several already taking place, which was one thing we were trying to work on for middle school because the first year so many people were trying to wait to the end of the year and that just doesn't work. It has to find a place for it in your curriculum throughout the year. So I feel like we've been doing a better job with that. The one-to-one technology, we have time set aside every month for in-service on different technology. It could be an app or whatever the case may be. Last month, Evan came and showed the staff how to use the Wordless Classroom. So it's a way for the teachers to have all the screens on their screen so they can see where all the students are going and if they're off going tangents or have 8 windows open and things like that. So that was the most recent one. So the promote a collaborative learning environment. I guess really for me, that was really my biggest initiative this year, me personally, is working on making sure that the students feel comfortable, they feel safe, we can work with them on their anxiety and stress levels, and for me, the same with the staff. So I've been trying really hard to do different things this year. The staff has been very helpful as well. We do have a child there right now, so you know that, you too. We've had random days where we've had the speakers out front and out back as the students are getting off the bus and the kids are getting out of the car. We've got music playing and we're high-fiving them and dancing as they walk in. We've had random acts of kindness days where they don't know it until the day they get there, but that last 50 minutes of the school day, they get to pick which just as downtime, they get to pick which activity they want to go to for the last 15 minutes, and we have a few more of those planned. And as far as the staff, I've just been trying to do little things here and there, little surprises to let them know. Right now, I'm working on the 8 days leading up to winter break. It's really, really cheesy stuff that I'm doing with them in the staff lounge. But like I can already tell they're getting a kick out of it. Like today, for example, I just said, this place would be a zoo without you. I really appreciate your hard work and dedication. And then each one of them had their own bag of animal crackers. I mean, that's intentional, but like every day is that cheesy, okay? But they like it, they laugh, and so it's just little things that I'm trying to work on to let them know. And I appreciate them. The last thing, we haven't gotten into this as much as I thought we would yet. I've got time set aside in March for our staff on our staff and service day. The curriculum maps, it's been a few years and we've had some updates to the state curriculum. So I thought this is a good time to make sure we go through an update. So we haven't started that yet. The plan is to start in March and then we'll probably finish up over the summer when they get to the curriculum time in the summer. But I do want to make sure that those are up to date, the learning targets and everything, and agreements on which month we're doing what.
Lisa, I have a question on the staff survey, the happiness, the 52% or 57%. That's not, I don't think you framed that before as a question in the past, right?
No, those were new questions this year that each building asked.
So given that, what's your sense of whether that's higher or lower than it has been in the past, or has it always been around that level and now we're just discovering it? Or
that's the first time we've asked that question. Those were all brand new to the staff this year. And the reason it stood out so much to me is because when I saw what the other answers were in the other buildings, I could tell that mine was lower. And I always prided myself on, I guess, building strong relationships and recognizing staff and appreciating them. So that really stood out to me, is like, ooh, wow, what's going on here? So it took a lot of individual conversations and taking some ownership myself of what I could do better and differently. But I really do feel like we're turning things around and things are going better. But yeah, so it was the first year, so I'm curious to see how it turns out next year.
And please let us know if there are things that we can do to support your efforts. Support us.
Oh, and like Travis mentioned, we're doing Common Classroom as well in middle school. So that's another one that the kids have really taken interest in. I've had several staff members already jump on board. Like they want to, they're eager to start this year, not wait till next year, so that's been helpful.
Thank you.
Well, good evening. I'm here representing the flagship school, Great High School.
It's a little inside joke. Not
that they're I will pay for that. I will pay for that.
Which is so untrue, Mr.
Gail's calling some people right now. They might be waiting for me.
I'm on it.
We teach humility.
I digress. I want to walk you through the high school CI plan. And again, this is highlights of the plan, similar to the other buildings. If you were to look at our full document, at the end we've got departmental goals, just similar to the way that Gail was speaking about grade level goals. So we'll go through some highlights here. These building strengths. The average ACT score for the graduating class of 2018 was 25.1. The significance in that is that every junior in this class took an ACT. And so for the first time in school history, we have a composite score with literally every student having taken the test. I don't want to hypothesize about what this would have looked like if certain students who are non-college going or didn't have an interest in taking the test or X, Y, and Z, what that would have looked like. But this is just an interesting number, very close to previous averages, which we're very proud of. We tend to live right between 25.0 and 26.0. We bounce back and forth in that range. The state average, Mr. Bernath, is somewhere around 22-ish.
9 more.
Okay, well, theirs dropped as well because of the same situation with the juniors taking the ACT. That second bullet there talks about student growth data. This is that value-added perspective that we take. So you look at achievement on something like an ACT, but then you look at growth on that second bullet, above expected in Algebra 1, Geometry, English 1, and English 2 as a whole. Okay, so that's the whole student taking each of those tests. That third one there is one that we continue to have a lot of pride in as well. 85% of our AP exams were scored at a 3 or higher. In the state of Ohio, a 3 or higher is automatic college credit. So for us, that's a benchmark that we use to determine how much credit our students could potentially earn if they matriculate to a state school. And you can see there that 197 out of the 232 students who took an AP exam earned at least one score of 3 or higher. And then the last piece up there is report card data. You're familiar with this. It's worth noting that we did not earn all A's like the intermediate school did.
That's why the flagship.
The prepared for success caveat there at the end, that should be with an asterisk. And this is something that Ryan works incredibly hard on with this prepared for success measure. The state chose some different benchmark measures to earn an A or a B. Our percentage and points earned actually increased from 2 years ago to last year, but our grade moved from an A to a B. Next year, we project that we'll be back in the A range, and thankfully the state will stop raising that bar. So 93% is their metric, so that'll stay at 93 for the foreseeable future. At least until a governor changes and something else shifts. But for the foreseeable future, we know what the target is on this one.
And what's in the Prepare for Success?
The Prepare for Success measures honors diplomas, AP scores. So there's an entry level that you get 1.0 points, and then if you have a bonus measure, then you earn a 0.3. So it's a little bit of a formulaic conversion, but it's all then generated out of 100 points, so like a letter grade.
So it's still a test?
All tests. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. It's entirely test-based. Well, except for the honors diploma.
Right.
The honors diploma piece, that would be, there's a testing component embedded in that honors diploma, but it's other curricular indicators as well.
And the honors diploma is state?
It is state awarded.
Awarded.
That's right. That's right. Improvement areas, we really wanted to hone in on two things. Student growth data for English 1 and Algebra 1. They were above expectation, but they decreased from 2 years ago to last year. So we wanted to get very microscopic with that and take a look at that data to see what we could pull from that. I will applaud the state in getting item analysis back in the hands of districts this summer for the first time. We simply haven't had that data to work with in the past. So that gives us the ability to really look literally item by item to see how our students scored on those questions so that we could then unpack those results with teachers and they could make common sense changes or adjustments in the way that they do instruction. So we're excited to see what that yields. That second one there, this is one that we've talked about in the past, but in November of 2017 on that ODS survey, approximately 17% of high school students reported having used electronic vapor product in the previous 30 days. This is a well-written story. You guys have been supportive of this from the onset when we came to you with concerns. So we're curious to see what happens with that number as we move from year to year. So in terms of the building initiatives, that first one lines up directly with the vaping statistic that we talked about. We're going to continue to implement Too Good for Drugs. We'll also continue to implement this year, really for the first time, but then for the foreseeable future, the revised tobacco use policy. That second one there, very similar to the other buildings, we had a solid first year with PBL. Solid to me means we had a lot of good that came with it, and we had a lot of learning that came with it as well. So each of the teachers did some pretty good reflection at the end of last school year on that PBL that they implemented to forecast changes that we're giving them time and space to make this year. We've really driven with that second and third bullet points, and to some extent the fourth one as well. We've driven towards more of what we call personal PD, personal professional development, so that teachers can bring it down to their classroom level. So based on PBL reflections, based on formative assessment reflections, we've actually tasked them with creating their plan for the year. So what are your measurables? What are the products or outcomes of your work? And then go get work done. So it's been very, very positive, very well received. This is the second year that we've implemented that style of PD, and I believe the staff responds to it very well. Can I answer any questions for you about the high school? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So at the beginning, I framed it from the standpoint of a culture of continuous improvement. You can't create a culture of improvement without a culture of inquiry. Wondering about, ways that we're doing well or not well. And I think you saw evidence of that. And an honest attempt to continually match our instruction with the needs of students. And that's every individual student. And that's why I think we continue to be a place that's desirable for people to come and have their kids educated in grammar schools. So kudos to all the administrators. They touched on a few of the things that they're doing related to this. There are so many more. And they do that in the context of a day-to-day management. I talked a lot about, Travis and Gail, they have a lot of kids in their buildings. Travis has about 700 under the age of 10, and Gail has over 600, that are slightly older. Maybe they can tie their shoes, but it's a lot of work on a day-to-day basis. All of our administrators are really doing a fantastic job at creating this culture of continuous improvement and creating results that I think all of us can be proud of. Kudos to the team.
I think we would all second that. We know how hard you work and how much effort there is, and you know how hard the staff works as well. We really appreciate that. Thank you.
I appreciate getting updates from the other building because as my son, passes through and I'm further and further removed from the other buildings, it's harder to keep track of what's going on. So I really appreciate everybody giving an update and really, and kudos, yes, again, I think there's just some amazing things going on in our buildings and I'm, pretty proud.
Yeah.
So.
I'd just like to, I've coached middle school football for 18 years. I've had 3 kids go middle school age. And I mean,
agreed that all 4 of our buildings, there's outstanding leadership and teachers there, but I get to see daily the challenges that there are with middle school students. I mean, I don't think Lisa overstated how much they have going on. And I've said this to Lisa and to the other teachers up there. I think it's an amazing job. Because there's some days 90 minutes is all this volunteer can take. So. But no, I mean, to all our staff and administrators, you guys do an excellent job, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. With that, we come to the portion of our agenda where we welcome public comments. If anyone has any comments that they'd like to share with us, please step to the podium. We'll close public comments. Okay.
Would you like me to frame the next item?
Please.
Yeah.
Actually, can we skip the next item?
There's a phrase called "Don't let the door hit." No. So there is going to be an action item later in the board agenda approving, hopefully, for Mike's sake, his resignation. So we wanted to give the board an opportunity to talk a little bit about the replacement process. There are several ways that you can go about doing that. You can hire a firm, you can work through OSBA, you can do it internally if you have staff capacity to do that. And so what I wanted to do was just kind of get a general sense from the board about what you're thinking, and I'll provide a little bit of information and context. And then, you know, what, from a timeline perspective, we're looking at from to create a smooth transition from Mike's tenure to a new treasurer's tenure. So Mike has done a little bit of, had a few conversations with some people that do this for a living and run treasurer searches or superintendent searches. The average cost is around $7,000 to $8,000. You know, all of the associations that we would be marketing to as far as getting out a job description and a vacancy notice, we are members of. So, you know, we have the ability to do that on our own. But I wanted to give you a context of, you know, if you have someone come in and run the whole process, that's what you're looking at. And then everything else is less than that. Okay? So I'll get mushy later. But, you know, this is a tactical kind. Sure.
Well, in terms of timing, I would be in favor of starting the search process in the year 2022. Putting on an extended contract. I don't think we can persuade you. So I think as it relates to how we do this, as you said, Mr. Brown, we can certainly retain one of the search firms that are out there. My inclination is not to do that. I don't get to use lines very often on my favorite character in the Disney movies, Mater, to not say. I think, and I think you would agree, both of you, that if we post this through the normal means and associations, that we should be able to get what we think would be a fairly deep pool of applicants or interest at least, and we would have to manage that screening process internally here as opposed to using an outside party for a fee. So not that I'm trying to sign you or any of this the administration up for more work, but I'm inclined to think that may be the way to go. But I want to hear from you if I'm wrong on that too.
Well, I think Tanya does a fantastic job at running HR. She's built a lot of systems that are in place now that make the paperwork process much more streamlined. So, you know, we have systems in place that complement what we're trying to do. I agree with you from the standpoint of, we will be able to cast a wide net through the current networks that Mike has, that he's built. And I think this will be a desirable job, although it will be very difficult to come in and fill a person's shoes like me. So they look like size 10, 10 and a half, but I think you know what I'm talking about. But I think we will get quite a deep candidate pool. And the other process, or the other thing that we can do is, if we're not generating the type of interest or in candidate pool, we can always engage at that time and do a modified search. So I think from a cost standpoint, it would be best if we did this process internally through Tanya's office, and then using our network of associations and try and get a quality candidate.
So posted early January and close it, what's reasonable in something like that? The end of January, early February?
Yeah, end of January.
And conduct interviews.
Right. So what I would suggest is at our January meeting, have some type of public conversation similar to the board discussion about what type of attributes you're looking for, but then really go into executive session to hammer that out under the allowable executive session replacement of an employee conversation, so that we can, really refine that list. But the posting will have already gone out to say that there's a vacancy that exists, and then we can refine what the type of characteristics you're looking for, and then use that as a barometer for, once we do the first phase of paper candidate pool and refining of a candidate pool for first and second interviews. Things like, do you desire a person with experience? Simple things like that, but you have to define those things.
What would be an advantage of using a search firm that we wouldn't?
It would take the work off of somebody internally, their plate, but I think it's
Specifically what? Because don't we screen all the?
OSBA, they would do all the collection of materials, they would do all the announcements, they would contact each, vacancy provider or posting agency. They would just do a lot of the legwork. That's why, to me, it's not worth the $7,000 unless you're not in a position where you think you'll get a decent candidate. Well, I don't think we're in that position.
And then, but we could always, if we didn't, like Jim said, we could always.
Yep. But go ahead.
I was just going to ask, our membership in OSBA and others, do they help, if nothing else, promote that we're looking for?
Yeah, they post.
They post, OASBO,
Right.
OSBA, BASA will also post vacancies. There are also statewide listservs that are also, targeting people who are currently in the field. And then there are some other things that we can do to try and hit people that are maybe in unconventional positions but might be interested. Mike was in.
We did pretty well with that.
Yes, exactly. And honestly, that's Mike's, ability to put that message out via his contacts. From a timeline standpoint, we talked about posting in January, closing at the end of January, doing the paper process, interview process. We'll want to talk about, what type of impact or input do you want from the community, at what point. But I would suggest that we are targeting a May 1st start time. So, April, making the decision on who the candidate is, so that Mike can have a month to overlap the person prior to his departure, and then the person would then do the end of the year closing in June. So, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's right. Yeah, although it probably would take, if you want someone to start on May 1st, probably is going to require a decision sometime in March.
Yeah. March, April. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because of spring break.
And to give time,
Yeah.
to give, if it's another, if it's another treasurer, to give notice and to make a transition in their district as well.
Are we comfortable with that time frame?
I think idea is like us coming up with these requirements clearly up front. So we're not sure how to, engage the community early in the process, maybe the finance committee or others that have spoken up with interest and so forth. But maybe, even over the holidays, we start thinking about that and come prepared in a meeting early January to with our, here's our requirements and here's our list and so forth. And I think we're really fortunate that I think this position is queued up really nice. And Mike has done such a great job with the whole staff of creating systems in place now that really are going to help things move smoothly. And I think that's going to be great for the incoming treasurer to be able to utilize those systems and the expertise that we've got developed and so forth. But it is big shoes to fill, and we'll see what kind of requirements are and what the candidates bring to the table. I don't think there's anybody that's going to have some of the background that Mike has in some of these areas of expertise, but we'll see what we get. And I'm really encouraged that we're going to have another team member with us here. And I really appreciate Mike's time for this transition, right? And the fact that we're able to make it, intentionally like this. So it's great.
Anything else? Board discussion? Board reports?
Yeah, the Granville Education Foundation is moving forward nicely as always. A couple of things. First of all, later in our agenda, we have the opportunity to accept grants from the GEF for a number of great projects. We'll get to those in the agenda, but I'll just highlight a couple of them. Magnifying 21st century learning with high-quality microscopes for the high school. Raising readers at the middle school. Creating a maker space at the elementary school. And a Gaga ball for the elementary school as well. And so there's some great projects, but in addition to that regular support that they give us in the enriching program, this is Granville Education Foundation's 25th year, and to celebrate their 25th anniversary, they're aspiring to a larger grant on the order of $25,000, in addition to their regular grants for exceptional education. So we're going through the process right now of both fundraising for that and understanding the funding side, as well as finding the right projects. And we've got some things in mind, I think, that might fit well with that bill. And it's just really neat to see this community-driven organization be able to do these things of this magnitude. So, yeah.
Thank you. It's great work you do.
Will the other buildings be able to get Gaga balls?
Yeah, they got to
Hey,
be
may I ask, what is a Gaga ball?
So it's basically a large octagon pit, and it's kind of like dodgeball, but just below the knees.
Okay.
It's extremely popular.
It's a big game these days at the elementary level.
It's like Foursquare in an octagon.
Yeah, that's true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The middle schoolers are going to be jealous.
Yeah.
Below the knees.
Yep.
Thank you. The economic sustainability, I'll tee it up for Jeff in a moment, but the one thing I want to say is, we've worked hard over the last number of years to push for thoughtful and appropriate economic development in the community, which will help balance out the tax burden that supports the schools as well as other institutions in the community. We'll continue to do that. I think it's critically important, even though we're coming off a win with the new income tax that will help the school district support itself over the next number of years. It's critically important that we continue to focus on economic sustainability, not just for the schools, but for the community at large. Jeff and Mike have done yeoman work on that, working collaboratively with local government, with the village, with the township, and others, and have been willing to meet with and work with opponents of projects in and around the area. I think we're starting to see the fruits of that labor in some, what appear to be some new small developments, the medical office building development down at the other end of Granville Road, which will be, I think, beneficial to the community and certainly additive to the tax space. And I know, Jeff, you've had a significant role in the discussion, the ongoing discussion with the township and the village about creating a memorandum of understanding out on the industrial area, developing things there.
So the update on that is, I believe both entities have a draft of an MOU that they are floating between their councils and their trustees. And the intent or the desire is to try and get that agreement passed before the end of the year, or at a minimum at the beginning of the next year. That MOU basically just says they're going to work jointly to try and create the CETA. And then that's where all the heavy lifting comes. But this is just the first step in saying that people are agreeing to the process. And I think that's a huge first step.
It's great progress.
Yeah.
And thank you for that. I know you've been very
It's a
diligent
team
in
effort.
your pursuit of that.
Team effort.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay. Let's move to the action agenda.
Okay. As you know, we typically establish our president pro tem for the organizational meeting in early January. So Russ, as current president, is typically the president coming in as pro tem.
So, second.
Discussion.
I
Any
don't know.
opposition?
I don't know.
Come on,
Do
sound
you have
like
any experience?
Take the roll, please.
Ms.
No
Deeds?
relevant.
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Dr. Corman?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Janice?
Aye. Thank you.
All right, thank you. 10.02 is our annual membership to OSBA.
So moved. Second.
Discussion, questions?
Dr. Corman?
Yes.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Janice?
Aye.
Okay, 10.03 is OSBA's Legal Assistance Fund membership.
So moved.
Second.
Just, you know, last year we actually utilized this fund and received $5,000 back to defend our case that we had in front of us at that time. So, I mean, it paid for it.
20 years?
Yeah, 20 years.
That's $250 a year.
Sounds good. Hopefully we don't have to use it.
Good investment.
Yes.
Questions?
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Dr. Corman?
Aye.
Mr. Janice?
Aye.
Okay, 10.04 is the approval of our treasurer Mike Sobel's, or approval of his resignation.
So what happens if no one makes a motion?
Right? We actually looked up that scenario.
I want to inform Jeff that as the secretary to the board, even if everybody votes no, I will certify this passing by 0.
Sounds like a good.
Yes.
We don't have to vote yes then. Makes it easy on all of us.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so obviously, you know, it's going to create 6 months of Mike, you know. I'm sure we're going to be talking about it ad
I
nauseam.
wish I was going already.
But I guess we'll start it here. Yeah, no, I'm just going to say a few things. And I sent these to Craig when he was notified of his departure, Mike's departure, but I think Granville has no idea what they have had in a treasurer in Mike Soul. And I'm not just going to talk about the numbers side of the equation. Mike is the best at that. There's no one better. It's the other side of it. His involvement in leadership activities, his involvement in the academic side of the equation, his sincere interest in our students succeeding, and finding unique ways to create revenue streams for us to accomplish what we've accomplished on relatively lean times. And so we are in a better position now than we could have ever been because of Mike. And so I give him a hard time. We agree to disagree. We probably agree more than we disagree. But it's been a team And I want to thank you for your decision that you made 7 years ago, because you made the right decision. And now you have to find another candidate that can work with me. But Mike has been a complete asset to this entire organization and team. So I'll kind of miss him. But I know he lives. And I know his efforts.
As you said, though, I think, you know, we'll, as we get closer to that dreaded day, we'll have a chance to speak about that. But look, there's nothing that we can do to pay Mike for all that you've done for this board, for schools, for the community. And Jeff said it right. I don't think people have any idea, casual observer has any idea how significant your contribution has been to Granville, to the students of Granville in so many different ways. I don't imagine there's another treasurer in the state of Ohio who on an annual basis goes into the classroom and teaches a class. I don't imagine that there, I know in fact, it's not an imagination, I know in fact there is no one else in the state of Ohio who serves in your capacity who has your understanding, your background, your contacts as it relates to state government and state government's role in funding schools. You know, I read recently in the Sentinel the discussion about the local work group, the Cup-Patterson work group, and they noted that you're not a member of that group, but you're serving as a consultant. People cannot imagine that thing wouldn't happen without you. But it wouldn't have gotten off the ground without you, Mike. And so I'm certainly hopeful that great things come from that discussion, but I know we would never have come to this point without your participation and your leadership. And that's something that we'll search high and low to find a great candidate. We won't find someone who has all those attributes. We have set the bar so high, and we've all benefited from it in this community. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'd just like to also extend that it goes way beyond Granville. You know, the work that you've done, right, is a reflection of your kind of passion for education, public education, is impacting kids all over the state. You know, and whether it be your advocacy at the State House or your work with so many other districts and things like that, that makes a huge
Or the
difference.
governor's office.
And so, I mean, we felt it here most directly, and we've been really, truly blessed to have you here with us for 7 years. But you know, I've seen great things happen around the state, and I hope that you have the opportunities to continue to pursue your passion. Right, you're always welcome back here in the classrooms, and always welcome back as a consultant. And looking forward to the next 6 months, and for keeping in touch after that.
You probably have to come back unpaid though.
I probably
Yeah.
All right, let's move on.
I-
Oh, go ahead.
We knew we made the right decision hiring you. We didn't have any idea how right it was and how good you were. And a few people in Granville had an inkling how good he was. I sent my husband an email and got the official notice from you, and he shot right down, full crap.
I'd just like to add, because I wasn't here 7 years ago, but as a new board member, Mike, you have always answered what I think might be ridiculous questions, but you're always there, you tolerate, put up with it, because I can ask a lot of questions, but trying to keep up with the board can be, because they've been here, and you've just been a tremendous asset to the board, but to me personally, trying to get up to speed and understand, and I got to experience you in the classroom, and the passion you have is really exciting, and and our students are blessed and lucky to have had your experience. Thank you.
Oh, thank you everybody for the kind comments. I really enjoyed the 7 years. I'm glad I did what I did. I wasn't sure I wanted to do this, but I'm really glad I did. especially. So,
The next 6 months aren't gonna be fun, but. We're getting everything we can.
Gotta work nights and weekends now.
now,
I have to write down all my questions. I have tons and tons of questions during the past 2 levy campaigns, and no question was ever too small, so that is always, is this the right word to use, Mike? Yeah, that's fine. So, yeah, thank you so much for all of that.
All right, that's the first of many. That should be soon. Thanks.
Ms. Deeds,
Aye.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Dr. Corman.
No,
Okay.
just because somebody should.
Mr. Wolf,
Aye.
and Mr. Jennings.
Or one.
All right.
My specialty.
10.05, Granville Board Policy Update. You have the following recommendations.
So moved.
Second.
And these are, like I said in the previous first reading, all very, very minor changes.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mr. Wolf,
Aye.
Ms. Deeds,
Aye.
Dr. Corman,
Aye.
Mr. Jennings.
Aye.
Thank you. 10.06 is the purchase of audio equipment.
Second.
Okay, just to give you a little context, the FCC sold to Verizon our frequency that runs all of our microphones, especially at our theater. And they can do that, which, really frustrates me because then the onus is on us to replace all the equipment with new frequency to the tune of about $58,000. And what they do is it just stops working. So we could be having a performance like the holiday concert and all of a sudden our mics won't work because they are deciding to test the bandwidth or test the frequency at that time. And so we were notified that that change was going to occur. And obviously during the levy campaign, we said we can't do anything about it. We tried to make a few adjustments with our current PI budget, but we wanted to take the opportunity to invest in the new equipment that, they say will not necessarily fall under that same bandwidth or frequency in the future that the FCC will want to sell off. So we are investing $44,000. We are also getting a significant rebate. So what was 58 is now 44. And we are going to be replacing all of our sound equipment.
We've actually already done it. We had already done about half the project. Mrs. Snyder was able to get significant discounts. But we decided, even though it's supposed to be 2020 before it stops working, but if anytime Verizon tests,
And they have.
and they have. And so since the levy passed and she was able to get further discounts on the remainder of the equipment, we decided it seemed kind of foolish to only replace half the equipment and have half the old equipment. And so we're going to replace the full thing. So we brought the whole project back because of the overall cost of it.
This reminds me of an unfunded mandate.
Yes. Well, and I'll just to give, I think they sold it for like $11 billion. Like, it's a huge expenditure.
But if every school district in the United States
Right.
has to spend $50,000 on new microphones, like, is it worth it or not?
Exactly.
It's one pocket to the next.
Right. I mean, it's ridiculous.
No, it's the type of thing, as Thomas said, unfunded mandate, the type of thing we pointed out in the past, that we could budget and anticipate certain expenses and other things just kind of completely out of left field.
Correct.
Right. We did. Commend Mrs. Snyder for working on it, and her colleagues to find replacements and to find some savings.
And she did spend a lot of time Yes,
Yeah.
working on this and saving us essentially $14,000.
That's great. How confident are we that when we buy this new equipment, that we won't find ourselves in the same situation?
Confident as I am that the General Assembly will not have another unknown. I mean, unfortunately, we're at the mercy of the FCC.
Okay. There's no other technology that would give us any assurance, I presume.
Unless we're using Mr. Microphone.
Those things are awesome.
Any questions?
Dr. Cornman.
Aye.
Ms. Deeds.
Aye.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Wolf.
Aye.
Mr. Jennings.
Okay, we have the consent agenda item of items 1101A through C7.
So moved.
Second?
Okay. What I'd like to do is highlight a couple of things. Mr. Miller, you highlighted the Granville Education Foundation grants that are listed there as donations and gifts grants. But I also want to mention the donation from Denison University of $15,000. That is scheduled to be an annual payment or annual donation. Based on the conversations that really came out of the community forums back after the May failure. Several Denison faculty and their CFO participated in a couple of those community forums and recognized that there are a couple of things that we pay for that we utilize at Denison that they would like to reimburse us for those costs annually, like the utilization of the Mitchell Center, the utilization of the pool, and some other areas that we utilize that we were being charged a fee. So this is something that, I mean, whether you call it a payment in lieu or just an annual donation, it's recognition that Denison is an active part of this community. They try and take a fair, balanced approach at how to support the schools, and we appreciate the donation. I am also going to highlight or just call your attention to the leaves of absences there. And that is it.
Thank you, Ms. Deeds, for your contribution to the JAS Archery.
Yes, yeah.
Children was left that choice not to like.
Imagine glad you are.
Yes.
Questions, comments?
Mr. Miller. Dr. Cornman.
Aye.
Mr. Wolf.
Aye.
Ms. Deeds.
Aye.
Mr. Jennings.
Aye.
Thank you. That takes us to the financials.
12.01, the monthly financial statement for November.
So moved.
Second.
Generally, we are in pretty good shape. This is the first time now, because the election has been certified, that the first page, or page 3 now reflects both the estimates for the income tax over the next 5 years, as well as the effects of the inside millage swap and the movement of the inside millage to the PI fund. And so you can see we're now still projecting a deficit spending this year, but beginning to take in more than we were spending that for the 4 years after that, and looking at, somewhere upwards of potentially at the end of 2023, under the assumptions as they were at that time of having close to a $10 million balance before we will most likely start deficit spending again, and it's to a small level in the 23-24 school year.
But that assumption, or that amount, assumes that we don't have any other
This is,
Replacement items.
this is making no assumptions of, you know, whether we eliminate pay to participate. That's assumed to still be in place as it is right now. Whether we're gonna bring back, librarian or something in their place. That's basically, there's no changes on that side, on the spending side. So this is strictly just revenue adjustments at this point.
So it reflects the millage that is going to not be.
That will be rolled off.
Yeah, it reflects the millage that's being rolled off over 2 years. The other areas, both revenues and spending are both running a little bit ahead of estimate, but we're pretty small percentages both ways. The main revenue areas where we're running ahead is in other revenue. A lot of that is the pay to participate, I think, is running ahead of where we had anticipated. That lines up about $130,000 through November, which captures the fall and winter, as well as the increase in the activity fee. With the spring, which should be more than we received in the winter, will push us up a little bit above what we had been forecasting. That's a good thing, because that's an indication that the implementation has not severely hurt, or maybe not even at all, hurt participation. On the spending side, we're still keeping an eye on some stuff in purchase services. Our electric costs are still running high. We're going to actually take a little bit deeper look into what's going on there, because I was expecting in the last month or two that we're finally through all the really hot weather for that to abate a little bit, and it really hasn't. So we're going to go back and take a look at why those costs are running so high at this point. The weather, I don't think, can explain it anymore. So we'll take a look at that. We do have an uptick in our open enrollment deduction for students going elsewhere. We've gone from about 13 to 22 kids open enrolling now. Page 9 shows you where the students are going to. The majority are open enrolling into the Newark schools. We have 16 of the 22 are open enrolling into Newark. Probably a combination of reasons there. We also are aware of a couple families that have moved into the district from elsewhere in Licking County, and they're actually splitting their family. Their older kids are open enrolling back to where they had been, and the younger ones are coming here because the older ones didn't want to leave. So that's why we've had a little bit of an uptick there in the open enrollment. The last area, the last page, we do have our property values.
What's the economic impact of enrollment out of the district? We receive funds from the state, or the state money goes straight to the school district
Essentially
based
what
on the number of
happens,
students at their rate?
is we get $2,000 for each of those students from the state, and the state turns around and deducts $6,000 from us and gives it to the district that the student is going to. So in essence, we pay about $4,000 to the district that the student is going to for each student that leaves. And so when you have 22 students leaving, you end up with a cost of a little over $80,000, which is up. From last year when we only had 13, it was only about $50,000.
And so why 6,000? Why do we get?
That's the state.
The state, the per pupil amount is $6,020.
Right.
And so the $6,020 follows the student, but we get paid based on our state share index,
Right.
which is about 33%. So we get 2 and give up 6. That's the case.
6,000 is the amount the state thinks it should cost to educate.
That's the base per pupil amount. It's the same for kids who go to online or to online schools. We get 2, they get 6. For the kids going there too, so.
And different for other schools that have different requirements and things
Well,
like
the
that, and
6
other scholarships.
The 6,000 is standard.
Okay.
How much you get is dependent on your state sharing tax. And so, yeah, so it varies by district as to how much the net impact of that is. The last page shows our valuations for 2018. Most everything was about what I expected to be, with the one exception being our public utility values grew by over 11%. And the nice thing about that is that actually generates revenue because it's at the voted rate. So that does add about $100,000 a year over the 5-year forecast into our revenue from that $1.7 million. And that's $100,000 above what had been forecast. I had been expecting about $500,000 of new value. So the it's the 1.1 million, 1.2 million additional revenue. The revaluation that drives the $100,000 of additional revenue to the district. Any questions about anything else that's?
When did the evaluations come out? Did it come out available to us? Just like timing wise.
I mean, we just got the final ones a week ago. Well, I knew what they were a few weeks ago because the county asked me to review the entire county's valuation before they sent them into the state. So I kind of knew what they were a few weeks ago.
And that's my comment.
But we just got, they were just approved by the state last week.
Questions?
Dr. Corman?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Mr. Jennings? Aye. And 12.02 is just updated appropriation resolution for the current fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. There's only a couple of minor changes in this. We have our updated federal numbers from our carryover, so we're appropriating the full federal amounts that we have available. Yet the AG started the safety grants, which we did not know we were going to get when we did the first appropriation. That's about $13,600 that we're going to be using on safety equipment that's appropriated. And then we upped the appropriation in the PI budget to pay for the equipment we just approved for Mrs. Snyder. And those are really the only substantive changes that are in the appropriations from what it was when it was adopted back in September. Any questions about that? Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Dr. Corman?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Jennings?
Aye.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Deeds?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf? Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Dr. Corman?
Aye.
Mr. Jennings?
Aye. Thank you. Thank you all.